much bigger hearts, bigger vessels. These surgeries are much easier to do. In spite of that, obviously, this is something that we should be telling the world that we are doing much more complicated heart surgeries here, and we have a better outcome. The next thing that I wanted to say is robotic surgeries. Now, robotic surgeries, most of us aren't even aware that we do robotic surgeries in India. I'm sure most of you wouldn't know that we do. If you go down south, Chennai, south has been one of the leaders for a long time actually, and Maharashtra can easily be there. I'm a Maharashtrian myself, like I'm from Maharashtra, born and brought up in Mumbai. So, like robotic surgeries, I'll tell you, we used to do a lot of robotic walls way back in Chennai, and most of these patients are from Middle East. I'm from UK, I'm from US. The reason they come back here is robotic surgeries are way more expensive than even a bypass there, obviously even in US. Here, as compared to what they offer in US and UK, we do it at 1/10 or 1/20th of the cost with a favorable outcome. In fact, one of our robotic surgeons in Chennai, he's been asked, and he's now the director of robotic cardiac surgery at University of Alabama in US. So it just goes to say that in US, every big hospital, you like Cleveland, Mayo, all of these hospitals have an Indian on board, not just on board the cardiac surgery. They are either heading the unit or they are a key member. So we are there. We are not behind anyone actually. The other thing that I wanted to say is transplants. Now coming down to transplants, like some sir had just spoken about a lot of people coming down from Russia. We do a lot of transplants on people from Russia. In fact, in the year 2014, Apollo Chennai, we had done 14 bilateral heart-lung transplants. Now, this was the highest number in the world at that point of time. We had overtaken Cleveland as well as Mayo. Now, Cleveland and Mayo are huge hospitals. These are 2,850 bedded hospitals. And in India, we have hospitals which are 400 and 500 bedded and doing a better job. But that's how it goes.
Thank you. Now, just to get you some statistics out of Chennai itself, 27% of medical tourism comes to Maharashtra, and 80% of that is in Mumbai. So, and Chennai is second, only about 15%. Yes. So we are really leaders in terms of medical tourism in the country. So, as you know, for many years, Bombay has always been the area of second reference. People would always come to Mumbai hospitals to get a second opinion, and that tradition still continues, I believe, and a lot of my medical colleagues will agree with me on that context. Darius, could you tell us from an orthopedic perspective, where do we stand and how do you think the orthopedic surgery could contribute to this event?
I think orthopedic surgery is ideally suited for medical tourism because there are a lot of surgeries which we call as fast-track surgeries, which means they have a very low complication rate, they have a very rapid recovery, and the patient doesn't need to stay in India for long. So examples would be hip and knee replacements. That would be the classical fast-track surgery where we normally hospitalize the patient for hardly 3 days. And to give you an idea about costs, replacement in US today costs around 35 lakhs in an average US hospital. In UK, the same replacement will cost around 15 lakhs. And in India, it costs around 3.5 lakhs. So there's a huge saving to be done. The other aspect is these are relatively high volume surgeries. So you could generate a lot of patients and volumes for these surgeries. Where I feel there would be a great breakthrough or a game changer is if companies in India could tie up with insurance companies abroad, so that the insurance companies abroad would cover the expenses here. Then that would really increase the volumes hugely.
Okay. In terms of the types of surgeries, in terms of spine, the new gadgets that you get, the kind of equipment, most of them are imported. Now, we, for example, in retroviral therapy, 80% of the world's retroviral drugs originate in India. So the pharmaceutical industry has gone way ahead. And as Farhat has said, why is it that medical equipment-wise or devices-wise we are lagging behind? Likewise, I think most of your equipment for knee replacements and all that, do they come from abroad or are they manufactured in India?
No, I would say in availability of equipment, I would disagree with you. Today, I think we have all the top equipment in Mumbai. We have the latest implants, we have the computer navigation, we have robotics.
No, I'm not questioning about availability. I'm questioning about manufacturing in India.
Yeah, but it is not, it is all imported. Unfortunately, you are absolutely right in terms of manufacturing. For some reason, the engineering and manufacturing processes have not kept up in terms of medical technology, and they are just not able to match the foreign implants. In fact, there I find that China has outpaced India in terms of manufacturing.
So we are addressing a merchants group, and so obviously there are a lot of business magnets here. So this Make in India concept for medical devices is something that really needs to look into because the pharmaceutical industry has really taken, taken big steps in terms of manufacturing and bringing down costs. The costs of retroviral therapy are phenomenally low as compared to what drugs which are produced abroad are.
Can I just add one more thing? Yeah. Though I think in the next few years, maybe 10 years, we are going to see a change. Already one of the big international Smith & Nephew is putting up a factory in India, and I'm sure other multinationals are going to follow suit. And hopefully Indian companies will catch up as well.
So the Make in India concept is beginning to really materialize. Dr. Natarajan, from an ophthalmologist's point of view.
I think ophthalmology, India is a leader for Make in India and Make for India. I think we have 4 intraocular lens companies which makes, and I think they are also labeled in some other and sent to the rest of the world.
How do you compare costs between, say, the intraocular devices which are available here or in the West?
That's the reason we can do a cataract surgery in 1,000 rupees with the doctor fee and the lens, because the lens costs hardly a few dollars.
How do you compare it with, say, a Western lens which is available?
No, it's very good. I think this is what the problem. It's like comparing, we had a Fiat before and a Mercedes, and I think there is a difference in the cost because of the mass production of lenses what we have. But the quality wise, I think, is the difference between, you need a car to go, whether you want a luxury car
Takes
or
you from
a
point
safety
A to
car.
point B.
And that's what is done with the intraocular lens and all the equipment. We have most of the equipment made in India now, and definitely because of the cost, we are not having the same quality as compared to it's like comparing an Indian car with a Mercedes. And I think that's how I put it. Both are good. It's not that I'm not comparing the Nano, but the rest of the cars made in India itself are good like that. So the people with the mass surgeries we do, I think all the patients are happy. Even in the private patients who cannot afford more than, for example, if you don't have an imported lens which costs, maybe the lens itself costs 60,000. Here you can do a surgery with 5,000 rupees, where nowhere it's a comparison. I think the rest of the world has no comparison except Nepal. And I think we are 6 times doing more cataract surgery than China. So we are the leader in prevention of blindness due to cataract. And the second is also retina surgery, which is what our hospital and that's how I migrated from Chennai to Mumbai, and a lot of retina surgeons are available all over India. And retina problems are becoming more problematic, one because of trauma, second because of diabetes. So we get patients from Africa and even from South America. I ask the patient, why do you want to come from South America, traveling 40 hours to Mumbai rather than going to US? And they all say that we know that you surgeons are more experienced and more skilled, and we give better results. And recently held retina meetings in US. All the vitreous surgery awards are got by the Indian surgeons. The gold, the platinum.
That's commendable. That's commendable.
We are actually, and we are really proud. We have to be proud of that. And the second is, we are also, I think, 1/3 of retina surgeons who are getting trained in US are Indian origin, which is something, they are second generation, but we are proud of that, and my plan as the president of the various societies in ophthalmology to bring them. And we are also, our centers and few centers do training. So we are also doing training for rest of the world. We have fellows from Brazil, Bogotas, and from Middle East, Israel,
From
even
Colombia.
so I think,
From Colombia.
but yes, Colombia, and so I think Indian surgeons are doing well, and ophthalmology we are the leader, and we have a lot to do more. And I think we are, even in diabetes, we are making a lot of handheld devices to detect diabetic retinopathy.
So how many surgeons come from, say, abroad to get trained here?
I think it should be easily 100 a year.
100 a year
Yes.
from different parts of the world come here to be
Yeah,
trained
yes.
by Indian ophthalmic
That's
surgeons.
it.
That's
Yes.
commendable. I think that's a great job.
Yes.
And we know for sure the centers of excellence, for example, the Shankar Netralaya,
Yes.
which is really internationally reputable institute,
Yes.
and a lot of surgeons all trained from there, as I know. The prominent ones.
I'm from there.
Yeah, so Shankar Netralaya is really a reputed training center. Anything that more that we are doing in ophthalmology which probably would attract people from, say, from the European
As
world?
Madam put it in the common platform, like the electronic platform, website, I think it should attract people, because Maharashtra has tourism, and this is what LASIK patients, some people have done. I think we have 2 hospitals in Mumbai, and they come for a LASIK, and they go have a holiday in Goa and go back. And there are charter flights coming from UK. And also I think they go to a beach in Maharashtra, which is in between border of Goa and so I think there's a charter flight lands in Goa, they come to Mumbai for surgery and go back. And I think that's where they suggested, even near Samantwadi or somewhere, that they should have a medical tourism, but I don't know how feasible it is. But I think entire Africa lacks normal eye care, including cataract. So a lot of our doctors go and do camps in Kenya because of the Gujarati community living there for second or third generation there. And I think they are also philanthropists who support. But it can be organized more, where the affluent patients from Ethiopia or Congo, and all of them come by hearsay, because there's a country called Eritrea. I don't know how many of you have heard. It's only 1.6 lakh population, and there I'm known well. I don't know the language, and they only know that my name, and they come patient to patient. They can't even speak local any language. I have to call the Delhi consulate for translation. As I saw that we are having translation, these sort of things. Even Congo, they speak only French. But I think they come in. I keep telling, even for money, I think our hospital doctors are doing well. And if they get 10 patients a day, which is possible from Africa to Mumbai, I think one will improve our economy. Second, we do excellent patient care.
Just a question, that we tend to do so much good work. How is it that we don't publish this kind of work? To really know this kind of work being done. Unfortunately, in the West they have assistants who publish things like that. Do you think this is a setback for not moving forwards in terms of what we do, the quality of work that we do, which is not really highlighted in medical journals?
The quality of work is very good. It's always, I think, this thing like, I don't know how many of you remember a company called Real Value, which advertised, spend money on crores in all the bus stops of Mumbai, and they were putting what will come, you see, and they made a product which was not useful to the people. They made a product of keeping food for the lunch to be hot, served hot, and 4,000 rupees. How can a middle class person afford it? So the entire thing went for. But here it's reverse. We have quality surgeons, we have a quality doctor sitting all over, and they are doing excellent work. And we, as Madam said, that fly-by-night people, right from taxi to towels, they are spoiled to some extent. And I remember some patients want to come to me, and they are being taken somewhere from the airport itself. And those things, I think, if the government has, as Madam mentioned, a compliance program and a certificate, like we are the first eye hospital going for NABH. Many people were wondering, why did I go? And same way, the first eye hospital in India went to NABH for Shankar Netralaya, and I met that, so I follow that. So for us, quality is first. And we unfortunately don't do marketing scientifically, and we cannot compete with the hotels. And that's what I was trying to meet for that. But my problem is I'm never available, so I'm traveling all over. I want to talk on this only, that there is a potential between the tour operators, the travel agents, and I tried several travel agents, and as madam said, I don't know, there are big names, they only want money, and they don't want to do the real facilitation. Where if they go to the website and know that this center is very good, and these are the charges, everything is put, there's no hidden cost. So the patient knows when he leaves, he can sign by, without demonetization, sign by credit card, and don't have to share out a single file, even a tip. And I think that should be done as a private-public partnership.
Okay, thank you. Vinay, would you please tell us, because we know that, see, this is a specialty which is cosmetic surgery. Now that's really an area which really needs to be concentrated on, because insurances abroad don't pay for cosmetic, a nose job or a thing like that. So insurances don't pay for that, and that kind of quality work, if it is done here, how will that really have an impact on medical tourism? Because I think this is one area, plastic surgery, is where probably you could really generate a large amount of work because of the people, because it may be cheaper here, people may come here and be able to deliver quality services. What do you say about that?
Absolutely, Dr. Praveen. Before I start, I would just like to give a small perspective on what plastic surgery entails. So plastic surgery is a combination of two things. One is aesthetic surgery, or cosmetic surgery is what is commonly referred to everywhere. And the second is reconstructive surgery. Both have got enormous potential in the country. For the surgeons over here are massively, trained, in huge numbers. So what it brings to us is, the second point is that as compared to any other branch, aesthetic surgery or cosmetic surgery, a person who's absolutely normal is seeking to become better, to enhance themselves. So they are not patients as such, they are actually clients. So it's a fundamental difference. We need to understand that, because that's how we are going to source them. We need to reach out to them rather than the other way around, them reaching out to us. In that context, it is very important that we build ourselves into a very specific thing, which ma'am had indicated in the presentation, was a government-approved website. Because the digital way is the only way to reach out. So we need to reach out to people so that they can come to us. When they come to us, we need to ensure all the people in the middle level are eliminated. Like Dr. Natarajan was also saying, we should not end up paying a tip to anyone. We need to have facilitators all the way, right from I would say somebody like a health attaché in our countries of relevance should be there, right? Just like you have defense attachés who would bring in regulate the people coming in. The aesthetic industry, like I said, you must reach out to them. So when they look out for nose jobs or breast augmentations or reductions or liposuctions, the word to say is first world surgery and care offered at literally third world rates. That should be the summary, because people are looking at the best options financially. That is what brings them here, because I'm sure most of the patients, in one sentence if I say, they know that the surgeons in India are very well trained. So if I give you an example, something like breast augmentation would almost be 8 to 9 times more expensive abroad than it is in India. So about 3 lakhs in India and about almost 25 to 30 lakhs abroad. It's a massive difference. So people would rather come and get a job done, and literally this is where medical and tourism, this is one place where it really comes into play together. People come in for a medical option, offer, get it done, and go in for a break for a week or so, 10 days to wherever they want to, have a tourism, meet or see places and come back for a checkup and then go back. So medical as well as tourism is one of the very cohesive places where plastic surgery could exist.
In terms of numbers, do you have any numbers of people coming in? Anybody, hospitals-wise or institute-wise, do we have numbers from which part of the world we get the maximum number of medical tourists?
A lot of them are from the Middle East, Africa, and SAARC group of countries.
But that's been there for years
Always.
together, what about from, Parag was saying there were people coming in from New Zealand. I knew spine surgery. Spine surgery is something which is a specialty which, a lot of people have a big waiting list in the Western world. So, is there something that you could tell us in spine surgery? There's a big wait. There is an area where you could get tourists from the affluent countries.
I think there are a lot of tourists coming in for spine surgery, though the bulk still remains Africa and UAE and its neighboring countries. Though I think from US, because of the exorbitant cost, spine surgery, once you're thinking of doing a spine surgery in US, you're talking about astronomical figures. So you do have patients coming in from the US, those who don't have insurance, because it really makes sense for them to come. We don't have that many patients. I don't think there are lots of patients coming in from European countries, because many of them are covered by their government schemes, so they've got their own government insurance.
Okay. Now, in terms of Indian healthcare structure, the Indian healthcare structure, there was a study which came out from Deloitte Group, where they looked at it in 2015 as about $100 billion industry, and they projected that it would be a $280 billion industry by 2020. That was the Deloitte. So we can see that. We are seeing in the city of Bombay new hospitals springing up everywhere, very very compliant with 5-star hotels, because they look like 5-star hotels. So could you tell us, you're in a new hospital, Parag, so could you tell us from that perspective, what is the competition and how you are attracting clients both domestically and internationally?
So I think some of the changes that are happening in the Indian healthcare scenario, if you look at the hospitals which have come up recently, my own being one of them, HN Hospital, which is undergone a thorough renovation, and well, actually, I think, I don't know whether the plastic surgeons had a job there, but they've done a marvelous job there as well. And of course, you have the new Apollo Hospital, which has come up in Navi Mumbai. So Mumbai has added on a fair number of beds. Now, apart from the fact that infrastructurally we are new and hence we're compliant to everything that there is to be, in terms of quality standards, in terms of infection control norms, in terms of fire egress and other such things, I think we're essentially poised to offer services that the erstwhile, if I may say, quote unquote, trust and private hospitals, which were very few then, would have been able to offer. A simple thing like setting up a Wi-Fi infrastructure, in a hospital, which today I think you can do without a meal, but you need Wi-Fi 24/7, because most of the cartoons on Facebook are all about how people are only chatting on phones, and you can't function without Wi-Fi, especially if you're a foreigner. I mean, ask all of us who go abroad. The first thing we log on to is the Wi-Fi, just to tell the wife, I've reached. Apart from this, I think there's a fair amount of focus on creating the aesthetic appeal that domestic and international patients would look for, starting with the smell of the disinfectant when you enter the hospital. Today's hospitals no longer smell like hospitals. They smell like, I mean, this is a very mundane thing if you look at it, but the smell of chlorine has disappeared from hospitals today. Processes have become smarter. Today we do in-room billing for patients, we do in-room registration. This is something, incidentally, which we picked up from the Taj. You can take a photograph on the tablet, you've got a Wi-Fi environment, you've got the systems loaded on your tablet, you register the patient in the room, why make him wait outside? Because remember, he's a patient. So I think there's a lot of focus which has gone into reorienting all processes from a patient perspective, rather than from a register perspective. Earlier days we had registers, and then we needed space to store those registers, and I think there's been a paradigm shift in moving away from the hospital's point of view to the client's point of view. And to that end, probably I'd say that the newer hospitals make a difference, and we palpably feel that because we still visit some of the older hospitals, because we have doctors there to whom we need to go to for reasons other than healthcare also sometimes. And we do realize that difference because we see the demeanor, the overall language, the body language of some of the people, and no offense meant, but the trade unions don't help, and it creates a lot of bad blood in terms of the way they deal with clients. So some of these things do contribute to a better dealing with the client, where the client is attracted to come to you. Apart from that, I think that in terms of cost strategy, most newer hospitals have adopted a skimming or an at-par strategy with competition. So they want to give a better proposition, a better value deal at a similar price and cost structure. To that end, I think the newer hospitals would have a better deal.
Yeah. Just to take on from where we know that medical tourism generates income, generates foreign exchange, helps you to improve on your infrastructure. So that's what it's going to do. But now coming to the downside of medical tourism, and here, this is since you're a microbiologist yourself who has gone on to administration, India has got bad blood in terms of bad news in terms of the infection rate that we have. A few years back there was a lot of controversy. There was these gram-negative bacteria that we talk about. There was one of these bugs named after New Delhi. It is called as a New Delhi beta-lactamase. So people in the West are concerned about this. That if I come into a hospital, will I get a resistant infection, which is something in the developing country because of various disappropriate use of antibiotics and things like that, that has really emerged, and that's something which we may act as a stumbling block, you think?
So I'm going to answer this in two parts. One, I think, yes, we have bad bugs, and there is no shying away from the fact that as a country, we need to deal with this on a much more grandiose scale. And I think to that end, the Chennai Declaration and the fact that we are working towards a robust antibiotic stewardship program is helping our country emerge out of this. The second thing is that, thanks to the World Wide Web, we all have access to everything that's available, and most hospitals today employ and deploy infection prevention norms which are at par with some of the best hospitals in the world. So I don't think that you would have an ICU, let's say your ICU at Bombay Hospital or my ICU at Wokhart or Apollo would be any different in terms of the stringency of infection norms that we practice. And our indicators actually, I think we heard that somewhere earlier also, our indicators on infection prevention, the diligence with which we practice hand hygiene is far superior. Now, many a times we heard this whole thing about, shoe removal is a must because India is a dirty country and so on and so on and so forth. Actually, it's a myth because every time you touch your feet to remove your shoes, you're adding more bugs onto your hand. And I think it's counterproductive to adhere to norms which are not scientific. So you need to move on to science, you need to monitor indicators, and you need to tell the world that, hey dudes, listen, we've got better rates than you, we've got better compliance to infection control practices, and our patient healthcare associated infections are definitely lower than the West. So why don't you just come to us and get operated? You have better surgeons, you have a more cost-effective sort of proposition, and you're as good or better than you in terms of the negatives. So yes, there is a problem, we need to deal with it, but at the same time, we also need to showcase the fact that we are practicing the best practices across the world, we're using them, and that's something which we don't really do very well in terms of showcasing our work.
Thank you. See, before I really open the floor for questions from our experts, there are some stumbling blocks. First of all, follow-up is not really possible in medical tourism, and follow-up concepts need to be looked at. You got to look at malpractice concepts in medical tourism, how it will have impact. So these are some downsides which I think the medical community can get together and work on this. And of course, Madam has told us what the government will do, and that's what we look at for government support in terms of how we can build better infrastructure, get the World Wide Web incorporated, showing what we can do in this part of the world. And with this, if there's any final thoughts from our panelists, if not, I'd like to open the floor for the next 5 to 10 minutes for questions from the audience, if you have anything for the experts in this area. Yes. Can we have a microphone?
Hello, good afternoon everyone. I am an occupational therapist, so could you please tell me something about rehabilitation and tourism? Thank you.
Would you like to talk about rehabilitation? Because you do a lot of rehabilitation following your surgeries.
I think as far as rehab goes, in the post-op regime, it usually happens in the hospital, and then when the patient shifts to a hotel room, we usually get a physiotherapist to visit him in the hotel room to do the rehab. But that's for a limited period while he is in India. Then what we advise is once they go back abroad, we show them the exercises, and maybe in conjunction with a physiotherapist there, they continue the exercises there. I am not aware of any patients who come only for rehab without surgery. I don't think I've ever come across a case like that. Sometimes a patient may come where they will say, look, I've been told I need surgery. I see the patient and I say, I don't think surgery is going to benefit you. You better just focus on rehab. So in that case, I send them to a physiotherapist to start the rehab, and then they go back and continue the rehab. That's the only
I guess
scenario I'm
you're
aware of.
probably looking at, say, strokes who want to come here for rehab and things like that. There are centers which are really practicing, and I know of 2 or 3 centers. I know the Conclave Hospital has a very active neuro rehab center. So maybe that could be also highlighted. Anything else? Any other questions from the audience? Yes.
Hello. My name is Tariq Hassan. I'm from the Bangladesh Deputy High Commission. It's really a pleasure and honor to be amongst you. And particularly, I would like to give thanks to the organizers to invite us, and also Srimati Valsanair Singh being here as the chief guest. So, and also like to thank her for mentioning some of our contributions to the medical tourism industry here in India. As she said that the lion's share of the medical tourists actually are contributed from the SAARC countries. Let me be more specific about it. Mentioning about the recent reports from one of the leading groups of India, the Times of India group, and particularly mentioning that Bangladesh being the leading contributor in terms of medical patients to India, that's amounting to 19.32% around, something like that, particularly in 2016, which was last year something like 14%, and before that 9%. So it almost is a geometrical growth, and surpassing contributions from US and UK, being the 2nd and 3rd position. So, being the contributor of the leading number of medical tourists or medical patients, we are yet to, I particularly myself am yet to say that these medical patients are yet to graduate to the medical tourist portion. So, from medical patients' point of view, we have some general opinion and we are also thankful to the medical industries, particularly in India, to take so much good care of our patients. We have a large number of population, being 160 million population, and it's growing. So it's difficult it's very overburdening for our medical industry to cater all the needs for the patients. But having said that, mostly what India receives these days about in terms of medical patients, these are mostly middle to lower income groups that we see coming here. And some of the more affluent persons actually are getting treatments somewhere like Singapore and Thailand and some other places. And it's not because of the quality of treatment that is, from my opinion and from my understanding, talking to many of them, it's somewhere what I see that they don't see that Indian medical industry is giving proper attention to them. Many of the speakers actually, particularly mentioned about patients coming in from various regions of the world. But the more number of patients you receive from your neighboring country, I do believe that you have certain things that you look towards them. So I would probably like to listen more about what India, particularly the hospitals in Maharashtra, doing for the patients coming in, because last year alone we almost see like 100,000 patients from Bangladesh alone to Mumbai, and this number can grow in a geometrical proportion. mostly there are a number of things that has to be done, but I can go into that later if
I'm sure we can discuss that.
Yeah,
I'm sure
so
we can
I would like
discuss
to
that.
hear something from the panel discussion, panelists there. Yeah, thank you.
So our hospital has catered to a large number of patients coming from Bangladesh, and it is, because the hospital that I practice, it caters to, all kinds of, affluent as well as the middle class and lower middle class. So there are hospitals which really cater to that group of people in this part of the country. So I know that our hospital also drains a large amount of people from Bangladesh. And I'm sure probably during the lunch break we can discuss that. If there anybody wants to address Bangladesh issues?
I think it's much less of a challenge as compared to people coming from the Gulf or from Africa, because language, local custom, cuisine is so much similar that I don't think we really see a problem. We do get patients, and I don't think it's a major problem in terms of either communication, because most hospitals do have people who speak Bengali, and I think we make do pretty well. So I don't think it's a major challenge, though I think we should recognize it at a Maharashtra level as a major opportunity waiting to be tapped into.
I'm sure the madam will address that also. Sure. Yes.
Good morning. I'm Dr. Disa. Can you hear me? This mic is not working.
Yeah, it seems to be.
Good morning. I'm Dr. Disa from Saifi Hospital. I'm the medical director of Saifi Hospital. Somebody mentioned about rehab. I just have an observation to make here that we have one of the finest rehab centers for advanced rehab in this city. Perhaps we train a lot of patients from the Middle East, from East Africa and various other parts for just this type of treatment following major surgery, etc., especially in orthopedic cases. The other thing I wanted to stress on was somebody mentioned about JCI and NABH. Well, NABH has yet not taken under its ambit the indicators and the protocols and guidelines for the clinical treatment of patients in the ICU, etc., in the operation theatre and all that. Although we practice all those protocols and guidelines, but we have never thought of documenting that, so at least that comes as a plus point for our Indian hospitals. Surprisingly, the NABH has not included this within the ambit of accreditation. Point number 3, it's quite paradoxical that we have so many patients, local patients coming to us, but we have got some of our very affluent patients who travel abroad for treatment, for super specialized treatment, so-called super specialized. So it's quite paradoxical that we have the best treatment here, the best hospitals, the best doctors, but yet a certain percentage of patients do go abroad for treatment. How do we make them stay back and take treatment?
I'm sure that number has really come down over the years. If you look at it 10, 15 years ago, a large number of people would be traveling abroad. I'm not saying that the affluent still do not go abroad. I mean, that is an individual perspective, and those factors cannot really be changed. But I can assure you, over the years, the number of people traveling abroad has clearly come down in terms, because of the wonderful facilities that we offer in our part of the world. Yes, sir.
Just to add on to sort of the 4th edition of the NABH standards, which was released in November last year, and I speak as part of the technical committee which wrote those standards. The 4th edition, specifically in the care of patient standards, has added on more clinical audits, has alluded specifically to adoption of care guidelines and care pathways, which are all part now of the audit. So the new set of auditors or refreshed auditors now do have a fair amount of deep insight and a drill down into the clinical processes as we see them.
Now, I speak on behalf, there is an organization called Best Doctors in the US, and I represent Best Doctors in the US here because they have recently come into India to get second opinions. So we have actually recruited we've got a database of doctors from all over India who can give second opinions. So best doctors really cater to IBM, they cater to Microsoft, they cater to everybody in the US. So anybody who wants second opinion in the US goes to best doctors. And they've come into India recognizing the fact that the health industry in India has really moved way ahead. And that's, if you look in the future, you will see more about second opinions from best doctors of the US.
So I had a question.
Yes, sir, you had a question.
Yeah. Hello. I have just one question. Now, you should see the aging population that is there all over the world. India is very young. So how is it that the hospitals are reacting to this? It's a niche market, but it's a good market also. So may I request one answer?
Would the administrator like to take that answer, or would anybody else? I mean, we have two administrators here because Dr. Natarajan runs his own hospital.
I think India is gearing up to both the challenges because a lot of diseases today are becoming younger and younger. IHD, ischemic heart disease, and I'm sure Dr. Pal would agree, you see more and more younger patients coming in with myocardial infarction, coming in for primary plasties, etc. At the same time, fortunately, unfortunately, I don't know how to look at it, the geriatric population in India is also, our average age is increasing, so we are seeing both ends of the spectrum. I think if you look at the last 5 years, there's a fair amount of sort of old age home kind of care, not hospice care, but specifically assisted care facilities which are coming up. There's at least one in Mumbai, there are at least 3 to 4 in the NCR. And I think that to that end, hospitals are managing, or the hospital industry, healthcare industry is managing to look at both ends of the spectrum, diseases getting younger and newer diseases evolving, as well as the diseases which we call the geriatric age group diseases. Dr. Nathan?
Actually, ophthalmology is needed from the time of birth to death, even after death, like eye donations. So I think the young probably, because if they are prematurely born, they unfortunately develop retinopathy of prematurity. And then the AC Nielsen study says more than 55% of children need glasses. So it comes under eye care, even though the optometrists are involved, and then they have a lazy eye. So I think eye care involves from the birth to death, and I think we already have 1.3 billion people, and many people don't take care. And I think the simple thing with the computers is the computer vision syndrome, and it may not fortunately produce vision problem, but definitely it's a nuisance, and it reduces the productivity, which the companies are not looking at, even the management level, because eye redness, soreness, then eye strain. So I think the young needs a checkup, and I think all over, particularly the children who are going from here to study abroad, they come for LASIK here, because LASIK surgery, the machines are same everywhere, and our surgeons are better, and then the cost is same machine, but the cost is almost 1/5 or 1/10.
Thank you.
In short, since the question was on geriatric medicine, geriatric medicine has now developed into a super specialty by itself in India, let me tell you that. This is something similar to emergency medicine, where initially we just had a casualty concept, but now we have people who have been trained in emergency medicine. The same goes for geriatric medicine, it's just that we need to market ourselves properly to the world, and I think we can have a lot of patients coming down as well.
Thank you.
So one last question.
Yeah.
Right here.
Yes.
Hi sir. Good afternoon. My name is Vanshnath Singh. I'm the International Marketing Manager for Nanavati Hospital. As a hospital, we just started international marketing this year. So you mentioned about best doctors, wherein you provide opinions to patients from all over the world. So I had two questions. One is that if we as Indians have to take an opinion from an American doctor, they have certain protocols in place wherein you have to pay for the opinion. It's a paid per opinion system that they have.
Correct.
But we as Indian hospitals, whenever we get queries for medical tourism, we give out free opinions to these patients. So
a second opinion is when there is a real complex case which needs opinion from various specialties. So we have a database of doctors from all over the country. So if the network is such that if somebody has in the group has, and their clients to various organisms have clientele, and these clients take an opinion from a group of doctors. So this is, it's a new concept which is really coming into India. So, I've been signaled by the organizers that I need to wind up here. Basically, I'd like to say thank you to the panelists for your inputs. I would like to say that there are 3 A's, okay? Availability, affable, and able. And that's what we are really looking at. Thank you very much for that.
Thank you, gentlemen, for that discussion, and I will request Mr. Faraj Jamal and Mr. N.R. Srinivasan to please present mementos to all the panelists and stay back for a group photo.
Just call upon Mr. Rajiv Duggal, the CEO of Lavasa Hospitality. Next, I'd like to call on Mr. Devendra Verma, the Executive Vice President of Oberoi Hotels, Mumbai. Followed by Dr. Hidayat Khan, the CMD of Human Care Air Ambulance. Can I also call upon Dr. Parag Rindani, the Associate Vice President and Head, Wokhart Hospital. Mr. Raj Bhojwani, please join us on stage, please. And last but not the least, Mr. Isa Ahmed, Vice President for India and Nepal, the Emirates Airlines. Thank you very much. I'm just going to commence this session. I know you'll have had a pretty deep session which is talking about hospitals, the patients, procedures. This one's going to be far more easy and far more in sync with the tourism part of the medical procedures. So we're actually looking at the opportunities and challenges for medical tourism in India. I have a very, very strategically placed panel of stakeholders that covers the entire gamut of medical tourism in India. Rajiv Duggal on my extreme left has been a tour operator, a hotelier. He runs a destination, runs hospitals. So for most of his life, he's had a very rounded experience in the field of travel and hospitality. To his right is Mr. Hidayat Khan, who runs air ambulance services based out of Mumbai and Delhi, who are a very critical part of the medical tourism sector. Immediately to his right, we have the Vice President of Wokhart Hospital. I mean, I can't imagine doing anything with medical tourism without having a hospital on board to give us their point of view. A very, very crucial part again is the hospitality industry, and we have Mr. Devendra Verma from the Oberoi to share his views on how hotels play a key role in facilitating medical tourism. We have Mr. Raj Bhojwani, who is based in Dubai. He's an investor in the sphere of the medical tourism, working very closely with the NHS in UK to try and send as many patients as he can to India. Am I right, Mr. Bhojwani? And last but not least, one of the key airlines that operate out of India, I might be politically incorrect to say the national carrier of India, but yeah, it's the Emirates Airlines who actually do a lot more than just transferring passengers for business and tourism. They're also a very key player in the medical tourism sector. So like you see, we have all the segments of medical tourism covered. So I'm going to kick this off by asking Rajiv Duggal to kind of put this together for me and help us explain where medical tourism is in India right now. Rajiv, I've been trying to read up on medical tourism over the last couple of days, and all the figures that we find are completely skewed. I don't know which ones to believe. So I'm going to tell you the last ones that I found is that over 200,000 passengers came to India in 2015 for medical tourism. A lot of them, they say, are from Bangladesh, some parts of the Middle East and Africa. not so many from the US and the EU and the other developed parts of the world. You've been a tour operator, and I believe 10 years ago, with a large tour operating the company, you actually set up what could be called one of the most organized medical or healthcare tour operating practices in the country. I also know that you tied up with a large a chain of hospitals at that time. But unfortunately, that effort seemed to have failed. Can you throw some light on that, as well as the entire sector as a whole, just to set the scene for what is going to come later?
Hello. Good afternoon, everybody. We are not doctors, so obviously our intelligence in the detailing of medical science will be missing, and since I'm addressing very senior people from the medical field, kindly I apologize if I'm incorrect in any of my connotations. We all know, and why we are doing this session, because all of us sitting here are huge stakeholders in the field of medical tourism. We'll debate whether it should be called medical tourism. I still wonder why. But the most important part was that we wanted to understand from this fraternity of brilliant doctors and hospitals whether we really, as components of medical tourism, do we really have a role to play. And I think that's one of the most important aspects today. Does each one of us have a role to play along with all of you? And why do I say this? Because as I represent the tour operating or the travel companies of India, and medical tourism has, like Sheldon just said, increasing over $2 billion in revenue, huge 30% growth year on year, but tragically, yet not coordinated on ground. So when he mentioned 11 years ago, I set up a large care unit as a tour operator. The basis was that, can we network a set of hospitals? Can we take their knowledge internationally? Why internationally? I just saw somebody stand up very elegantly and said, I'm the marketing head of a hospital. I still don't know whether a hospital should be marketing international. Why not the tour operator? We've been going international and bringing in tourists for over 70, 80 years. There isn't a market in the world where the prestigious tour operating companies of India don't have inroads. We bring in more than 300,000 tourists in less than 6 months a year in India. Why would we not be a part of taking your knowledge, your competence to the world? Why would you want to recreate that factor? We've been instrumental in language. So today when travel personnel, people come from all over the world to India, they could be Italians, they could be Egyptians, they could be Germans. The tour operating companies have mastered the language across the world. And I just heard in the first session that language becomes a very important factor when dealing with care. And the last part, we've been doing our Atiti Devo Bhava for centuries now. So the travel and tour operating business knows exactly what care is all about when a foreign tourist is here. So my point is that I hope in this discussion as we go ahead, we come up with a solution that all the components of medical tourism, are they relevant to the hospital and doctors? Because if we are not, we are wasting too much time dwelling in a business which is not bringing us any value. Because today, your first reaction to a tour operator or travel agent is, he's nuisance, I need to pay him commission, I don't know for what he does, and do I really need him? And that's very important for us to discuss today. So I'll open it up with this, Sheldon, that are we all relevant today or not?
Rajiv, I'm going to stay with that fact, actually, coming back to this coinage of the word medical tourism. I'm not sure in India whether medical tourism has ever worked. So I read a report, I think about a year ago, put out by either Pricewaterhouse or Ernst & Young, I can't remember which actually said that in India we need to call it medical value travel. Because the concept of medical tourism
does not really exist in India yet. It's not organized at all. There are no government laws or best practices that make it work. It's just an ad hoc, scattered effort of a few hospitals tying up with a few airlines, like Isa was just telling me a little while ago, tying up with a few tour operators or doing their own thing. So when they actually did a research, they actually suggested to the government that India should market themselves as a medical value travel destination and not a medical tourism destination. So I would like to start this debate by the nomenclature. Are we actually looking at medical tourism, or are we looking at something called medical value travel? Because like we were just discussing outside, medical tourism actually encompasses three large spheres. One is the overall sector of health and wellness, which includes spa or alternate therapies, treatments for which India is well known for. The other one is actual hospital procedures and surgeries and healthcare. Along with that, there is a huge opportunity for geriatric care, what in India we call old age homes. That was a very, very interesting observation by Raj Bhojwani, who actually told me that, India is, as a population, as a race, we care for our elders. And whereas in a lot of countries out there in the West, people don't. So the Philippines and Sri Lanka and stuff like that are making optimum use of this opportunity. So let me put the question back at you, Rajaji. Are we actually a medical value travel destination, or are we a medical tourism destination?
So my answer to that is, I think we are still medical value tourism destination. Medical tourism is very much available. Medical tourism can be developed in this country. All components of medical tourism are more than visible in India and available. Our biggest problem is we haven't networked it. So Madam Secretary was here, she's not here now. She gave a very good proposal that the IMC should put together now a document or a council that actually networks this. Very true, because today, as an airline, as a hospital, as a tour operator, as a medical emergency unit, none of us are connected. None of us have any accreditation as with any of the hospitals or doctors. So today, most of you know that there is a company, a very successful company that started 10 years ago in India called Visa Facilitation Services. What did they do? They brought all the embassies together, started something called VFS, and today each one of us, while going for a visa, actually goes to VFS for the first level, before we go to the embassy. Why can't a tour operator and airlines all network and be the first level for hospitals and doctors to get the right patient from all over the world? Accreditors, take the right agents on, take the right facilitators on as hospitals and as doctors, and authorize them the first level of customer care. Then, none of us, believe you me, the impression is that we want to make money on the procedure that the hospital does. I think that is totally wrong. None of us have any knowledge. We do not know what happens behind those doors. You're the experts there. But believe you me, on the ground, networking, we know enough and more about how to handle a customer once he enters India. And I feel that is why medical tourism right now is not in its real shape of medical.
I'm going to pass this on to Mr. Raj Bhojwani. Mr. Bhojwani, you've been based in Dubai working with the NHS to send a lot of medical people into India for treatment. How do you view India as a medical tourism destination in its true sense?
Thank you. Good afternoon. I agree with Rajiv, and you've got a lot of different stakeholders expending energy in different directions. There is no cohesive body or umbrella, and that is why we're not making the sort of progress we should be making. But if we can leave today's conclave with 3 or 4 concrete points, the task force, the web portal, which could easily be underwritten by the IMC and the Maharashtra state government, and of course the 2 other points that the lady said, then progress would have been made. But coming back to the question you put, we we are focusing, at least from the developed countries, on just 2% or 3% of the potential market. The major chunk of the market, 95, 98%, lies with the state as the prime insurer or provider of the funds, the NHS, or the insurance companies, none of whom I see here today. So that is, I think, a major omission. If we have to take a quantum leap in getting more medical tourists in the real sense to come to India and get their treatments done, then we have to we have to approach the people that underwrite this treatment. That is the insurance companies and the state.